We have a very special episode of Garden Sense this week as we are going to be dealing with the overseeding process. So if you're going to be overseeding your lawn, then this is the episode for you. Hey everybody, I'm Tim Ward and welcome back to Garden Sense. Well, folks, as you know, we usually answer 4 to 5 questions each episode to try and help those with questions about their lawns, about their gardens. Well, this week we are going to do our annual video on the overseeding process. Now, we've been getting a lot of questions from you about when to fertilize, when to kill the weeds, the type of grass seed we recommend, and that's why we always put together a video like this. So if you are going to be overseeding your lawn this fall, then this is absolutely the video for you. So buckle up, everybody. Let's jump right in. So the first step in our overseeding process is going to be killing the weeds. And to do that, you're going to need 3 things. The first thing you're going to need is a pump sprayer. Then you're going to need Image all-in-one weed killer and wilt proof. Now, folks, as you know, typically when you put down a weed killer, you can't overseed for a couple of weeks depending on the weed killer that you choose to use. With what I'm going to explain here now, you only have to wait a couple of days before you start the seeding process. So here's what you're going to do. You want to take 1 gallon of water and add it to that pump sprayer. Then you want to take 4 ounces of the Image product and then 1 ounce of the wilt proof product. And those measurements, 1 gallon of water, 4 ounces of Image, and 1 ounce of wilt proof is what you're going to continue to use to try and kill the weeds until you have covered your entire lawn. Now, the reason we're doing this is because the wilt proof essentially is going to act like a spreader sticker, and it's actually going to help that Image all-in-one weed killer stick to the weeds and not get down to the soil. What happens is when those chemicals get down to the soil, that's actually what can kill the seed, and that's why you have to wait weeks, sometimes a couple of months before you can overseed depending on the weed killer. We are going to do this in just a couple of days. So get a pump sprayer, fill it with 1 gallon of water, add 4 ounces of Image, add 1 ounce of wilt proof and start spraying down your lawn. And then when you run out, if you've got a large lawn, you want to fill it back up using that exact same mix ratio until your entire lawn is covered. Now, let's go on to step number 2. So after 2 or 3 days of you putting down that mixture of Image all-in-one and wilt proof, you are actually going to want to scalp your lawn. Now, I know that sounds odd, but hear me out. The reason that we're going to be scalping the lawn is because unlike other overseeding processes that we've described in the past, which are effective, we are essentially going to be using the grass clippings that scalping the lawn is going to create as the straw that's going to cover the seed. So the next step is to lower the deck on your mower until it's about a 1/2 inch or as low as you can get it without just completely dragging on the ground. And you want to mow your entire lawn. It's going to kick up a lot of dirt, a lot of dust, and obviously your lawn is going to look terrible after it, but that's the point. It's really, really important. Now remember, do not rake up the grass clippings. You actually want to leave those on your lawn, and that is what we're going to actually use as a straw covering when we put down the seed, which is step number 3. So the next step is really to spread seed. And obviously we talk a lot about Baron Brug's Turf Saver RTF, and that's a seed that we're going to recommend here. Now, because we're overseeding and not just planting brand new grass, what you're actually going to want to make sure that you're doing is putting it down at the correct rate. Now, for Baron Brug RTF, you want to put down 4 to 5 pounds per 1,000 square feet of area. So again, measure out the size of your yard, and then just head over to Rosen's online and pick up some Baron Brug Turf Saver RTF seed that's going to get you really, really close to the amount that you need. Again, it's 4 to 5 pounds per 1,000 square feet. Now, as I mentioned in the previous step, after you spread the seed, you actually just want to make sure that all those grass clippings are kind of covering the area that you're overseeding. If by some chance you have some big, kind of large bare spots in your yard, what I would actually recommend in those scenarios is once you get the seed down, I would actually cover it with Easy Straw. Obviously, if you do not have any bare spots, then the grass clippings that are generated when you scalp the lawn are going to be sufficient. But again, if you've got bare spots, there's obviously no grass there that can be used for clippings, and so we'd actually recommend that you cover the seed with Easy Straw. All these products I'm talking about are available over at rosensonline.com. So now let's jump to step number 4. The next step you want to follow is putting down turf trust. Folks, we talk about this product all the time because it's so effective. Now, the turf trust that you want to use is the Turf Trust Professional Starter Formula. Again, we are overseeding, and this particular formula actually contains phosphorus, which is really important when trying to establish a new lawn. So head over to rosensonline.com and pick up a couple of bags of Turf Trust Professional Starter Formula. So after you've got that fertilizer, once you have used the weed killer, and then a couple of days later you have scalped the lawn, you've put down the seed, that same day that you put down the seed, you want to make sure you go over it with Turf Trust. It's really, really important, again, that you buy the Turf Trust Professional Starter Formula because it contains phosphorus, and that's the product that we want to use because that phosphorus is really going to help those roots get established and help the new grass grow. Now, let's go on to the next step. The 5th step in this process is watering. And when we say watering, we mean watering daily for the next 2 to 3 weeks. It's really, really important because the seed needs that water. Now, if you're an avid watcher of this program, you know that we talk a lot about watering in the morning for healthy grass. Well, in this process, you actually want to do it in the late afternoon or evening. And the reason for that is we don't want the moisture to evaporate off with the sun. In fact, if you start to water into the evening and that sun goes down, that's actually better because the ground's going to stay wet longer, and that's what the seed needs. So again, the 5th step is watering at least once a day for the next 2 to 3 weeks, and make sure that you're doing it in the late afternoon or early evening. The final step in our overseeding process is to use Kickstart once a week for the first 3 to 4 weeks of new grass being visible. Folks, I talk about Kickstart all the time on this program. It is such a valuable tool at your disposal for growing healthy plants. It's going to strengthen the root system, and that's exactly what this new grass is going to need. So once you start to see the grass breaking through the soil surface, you're going to want to use Kickstart once a week for the next 3 to 4 weeks to really help that root system get established. All right, everybody, just a couple final thoughts before we wrap up this week's video podcast, and we hope you've enjoyed it. Folks, I understand that this is a little bit newer process than what we preached about for years. We actually first introduced this process last fall. We tried it ourselves, and a couple of us here at Rosens participated in the testing of this process, and it worked amazingly well, and we know that it can work for you. Now, a couple of things that I do want you to remember is, first, with regards to sun and shade. If you've overseeded your lawn and you have followed all the steps perfectly, remember that grass that is in the sun is going to grow a little bit faster than grass that is more in the shade. Well, it's the same thing with the grass seed that you've put in. So don't get discouraged if you see the sunny parts of your yard coming up a little bit faster than the shaded parts of your yard. That is 100% natural, and I just want to remind you of that fact. Folks, the other thing I want to remind you of is that all of the products that we've talked about here today are available over at rosensonline.com. But what's going to be most critical to this process is making sure that you're getting the right Turf Trust, which is the Turf Trust Professional Starter Formula. Now, I also want to remind you, with regards to that formula, you are allowed to use those in phosphate-free areas because you're overseeding. Any areas that outlaw phosphorus typically allow you to use this type of fertilizer when you are seeding, when you are overseeding, when you are putting down new turf. Folks, it's really, really important that you are using the right fertilizer because, again, it contains phosphorus and that's what the grass really needs to come in strong. Now, I also want to remind you that the use of Kickstart, I say in the video that 3 to 4 weeks. Folks, ideally, you should just continue to use Kickstart because it'll just continue to strengthen the root system of your lawn. And long term, that's going to help your lawn fight diseases. It's going to help it stay healthy during areas of, or times rather, of very little to no rain, periods of drought. A strong root system will really help keep your grass healthy. Now, folks, we ran through these steps pretty quickly today, and I'm sure you're going to have some questions. So if you do, make sure that you send them directly to me, tim@rosensonline.com. I will do my best to get back to you as quickly as possible. Folks, these last few weeks have been really tough. I am working on 4 and 5 days out in some cases in terms of responding to emails, simply because I can't keep up with the volume. But your emails are important to us, and we really appreciate the communication. Folks, as always, I hope that you have an amazing rest of the week. God bless.